Okay, so here we are with issue 23. And so, just like we did for the bonus for issue 22, I'm going to go ahead and walk through the details of what we had uh, as far as build video and all that kind of stuff. So, take it away, Gary. All right, so here we are, and we're going to go over the stuff for issue 23. And we're up to 21 hours and 51 minutes of total video time, 69 hours and 18 minutes of total build time. Our average is below 33 minutes now for the first time in probably quite a while. And we're up to 371 glued pieces. So last time we were over 33 minutes, like 33 minutes and 23 seconds or something. So interesting. So 371 glued pieces. And I don't think I really I used one micro brush on that one, and that was just for glue. So we'll update that there. And I did use 2 pipe cleaners, so that's important. All right, let's break down the issue. So here we go with the issue. We only had one video in the issue. It was about corridors. Our completion time was 52 minutes, and a total of 3 captures in that. The video time itself, video capture time, was 32 minutes and 18 seconds, but the video length was only 22 minutes and 14 seconds long. We didn't do any screws, but we did do 6 more glued parts, and so that was the 4 pads, the cushions that go on the wall, the top of the corridor, and then the ring on the outside. So, and then those are very common wooden parts. So there we go with that. Let's look at our video counter. So again, it was 22 minutes and 14 seconds long. We had our captures. We had one nearly 5 minutes long, one that was 16 and a half minutes long, and one that was nearly 11 minutes long. And that came out to a total capture time of 32 minutes and 18 seconds. I did about 20 minutes of off time work. I didn't have to do anything with the cushions because I did that in issue 22, but I did do some airbrushing, and that required cleaning of the airbrush and that kind of stuff. So, plus, doing the primer, waiting for it to dry. So there's a little bit of additional prep time. So total time for this issue was 52 minutes and 18 seconds. So there you go. That is the breakdown for this issue. Now let's go ahead and break down the actual issue. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Uh, Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this kind of new format or what have you. So hopefully you're liking it, and hopefully it's beneficial and more interesting than just going through this. So let's go ahead and go through the Imperial capital ship, the Star Destroyer deployments. We've gone through the Star Destroyers, but we haven't talked about their deployments. And so uh, let's go through some of the modifications that we've already went through. So it's a carrier, it's a command ship, it's a destroyer, military transport. The crew typically has 9,200 officers, 9,700 infantry, 27,850 enlisted crew, and 275 gunners. Cargo capacity is 36,000 tons. That's a crap ton. And the support equipment is repair and recovery vessels, prefabricated garrison base, 2 years consumables and munitions, hollow net transceiver. So it's basically everything you would want and more in some sort of a ship on the line, right? So in essence, it's a flying city. The Imperial Star Destroyer had the capacity to occupy and overrun most planetary defenses and sufficient manpower to take almost any target by force, while the vehicle itself was fearsome enough to the offensive craft held within a Star Destroyer carried enough firepower to beat down any lingering resistance. It's got rapid response because of the hyperspace fuel generator housed deep in within the domed ventral ridge of the vessel. Must be that there. Or maybe it's on the bottom is the ventral ridge. This is the dorsal ridge. Bottom's the ventral ridge. That's that domed part at the bottom. So uh, it's largest kind ever built at the time, and used more raw power in one hyperspace jump than many planetary nations would consume during their entire existence. That's a lot of power. The well-shielded carbonite Durasteel reinforced SFS IA-2B solar ionization reactor powered the primary systems on the ship, including hyperdrive propulsion and weapons, and gave the vessel enough juice to tackle any task at hand. With a Class 2 hyperdrive and Class 8 backup, nowhere in the galaxy was out of reach for the Imperial Star Destroyer. A flying launch platform, a standard Imperial I-class Star Destroyer carried a total of 72 TIE fighters, or TIE ships, ranging from the ubiquitous TIE Fighter and the devastatingly swift TIE Interceptor. I'll see if I can find a picture of TIE Interceptor, put it there, to the heavy-hitting TIE Bomber and TIE boarding craft. I don't know if I've ever seen a TIE boarding craft, but we have seen the TIE Interceptors and the TIE Bombers. So I'll see if I can't get those around there. Arriving in the main TIE landing bay, these vehicles would move to servicing bays on to the launch hangars via transfer carriers, where the heavily protected bombers would launch from the sternmost launch hangar. Each of these vessels had its own dedicated crew and highly trained Imperial pilots. So we went through the number of people. So it carried between 37,000 to 47,000 people. And like I said, it was 9,000 officers, nearly 10,000 infantry, and 28,000. We just went through those numbers. This part down here is rather interesting. So the deck officers, Imperial Star Destroyers, were helmed from the command bridge, which utilized the layout common to the all-class Star Destroyer, right through to the Super Star Destroyer. The crew operated in sunken pits below floor level, whereas their superior officers could view the endless depths of space. While it was a highly desirable position to occupy, crew members would often witness the grisly end of their superior officers at close hand. I have a feeling that Vader was responsible for some of those. And so, it talks about their launch bays and the launch vehicles. The vehicle complement of the Star Destroyer was larger than many spaceports across the galaxy, with the ability to launch waves of ships in advance of any attack. In addition to its offensive squadrons of TIE fighters and bombers, the Star Destroyer housed 15 Delta-class stormtrooper transports, 5 assault gunboats, and a variety of ski prey blast boats, 8 Lambda-class shuttles, and at least 1 Gamma-class assault shuttle. Don't know what a Gamma-class assault shuttle is. Be interested to see what that is, but I don't know how hard that would be to find. One of these days, I'm going to go through all these, and we'll just do a thing with just all the different ships. Various repair and recovery vehicles, a dozen Sentinel-class landing craft, and even a prefabricated garrison base could also be taken down, along with 30 ATSTs to discharge the heavier ground assault vehicles. Destroyer used DeAgostini-class cruisers that lifted the 20 AT-ATs, folding the legs up to protect them during flight. The modified cruiser would then extend its shields around the AT-AT until the moment of deployment. So that's pretty cool, pretty crazy. I would have thought that those would have been kind of specialized, specialized outfits, like they were outfitted that way for specific missions and not like a normal thing. So we know about the Battle of Endor and all that, so I'm not going to go through that. So let's go behind the scenes here. As conceived by Colin Cantwell, the early Star Destroyer design was vastly different from the vehicles that finally appeared on screen. Although the main body of the vessel had the familiar arrowhead shape, the conning tower was on the narrow end of the ship, while a long blade-like section protruded near the blue engines of the destroyer, with launch bays either side, with wings stuck out from both sides, holding enormous radar dishes, and the vehicle seemed a lot smaller in scale than the monster that appeared in May 1977. More design work on the Star Destroyer would eventually hone in on the arrow-headed body of this design and turn it around, replacing the launch bay with engines and replacing the conning tower at the rear of the ship. Cantwell was also involved in other iconic designs, including the Millennium Falcon, Land Speeder, and TIE Fighter, and X-Wing. So that must be Cantwell there. Without any of its surface detailing, and yet to receive the raised bridges at the rear, the prototype Star Destroyer takes shape at the ILM model shop. Pretty cool. Yavin IV's Masasi Temple. See, we've talked about the Masasi Temple, or at least Yavin IV, where we talked a little bit about the Masasi Temple. So let's go ahead and go through it again real quick and see if there's anything new and special about it. So we know about its global positioning. It's 40,000 light years from the core. The temple structure was the Yavin IV Masasi site, dated 5000 BBY, which is before Battle of Yavin. The Ziggurat divided into 4 levels internally, and its material is made of stone. Yavin 4 is covered with almost impenetrable vegetation, but the ancient temple rising from the jungle is of huge interest to galactic archaeologists and has twice been converted into military base. So we know that previously, when we did this, talked about Yavin 4, we learned that what they use for the temple in the movies, that was actually filmed down in Mexico, I believe. I think they were like Aztec pyramids or something. So if you don't remember, we'll go back and watch some of the other bonus videos. The magnificent temple that towers above the treetops of Yavin 4 is rumored to have been built by the Masasi people under the leadership of Sith Lord called Naga Sadao. The Masasi people revered Sadao like a god, even though he treated them badly, and they raised the temple in his honor. Uh, some archaeologists have proposed that the structure may have been used as some kind of large-scale communication device to reach other Sith Lords across the galaxy. The temple was constructed on several levels, some of which are underground. Remarkably, the Masasi people built the temple without any advanced tools, and many archaeologists believe it was done completely by hand. Only the finest materials were used, an example of which is the Grand Audience Chamber, which was tiled with various translucent precious stones. That's pretty cool. The Rebel base. When the Rebel Alliance made the Great Temple their base, they tried to restore the outside to its former glory, but the algae, mosses, and vines resisted their attempts to clear the surface of vegetation. Inside the temple was transformed, with the stone facing being covered with sheets of seamed metal where necessary, and the original roughly cut cavities in the walls were made straighter by cutting into the stone to make more useful spaces. The rebel hangars were located on the lowest levels of the great temple, with elevators to move some of the smaller fighters from floor to floor, while access to leave and enter the temple could be achieved via a tunnel to the main hangar launch bay doors. This trick These thick doors were shielded to seal off the entrance of the temple and could be raised and lowered as needed. A turbo lift to an insulated deep crust survival bunker was installed as a last refuge in the event of bombardment of the planet's surface. The Empire wasn't intending on bombardment; they were intending on just blowing up the whole planet. Rebel construction squads were also built tall observation towers outside the temple to monitor all activity in the atmosphere or on the surface of the moon. Let's go back to here. Medal ceremony. Yes, we know all about this. Let me see. Immediately after the ceremony, General Dodonna gave the order to start stripping out the temple and preparing to leave. As they started the search for a new base, Princess Leia asked the general for permission to help with the search, but with a large bounty on her head, as there was for all survivors of Alderaan, her request was denied. Determined to try to make a difference, she fled the planet with R2-D2 and ace female pilot Yavin to try and find a new home for the Rebel Alliance. So, yeah, Leia was not very good at following orders. Behind the scenes, the temple used on the screen is part of the Mayan ruins at Tikal in Guatemala. That's where it's at. I knew we covered that before. In Central America, and was chosen as a location for the Rebel base after George Lucas saw a poster for the popular tourist destination at a British travel agency during production of the first Star Wars film. The 72-meter Temple 4 pyramid, dating from around 720 AD, was chosen for filming the scenes of the Falcon landing on the moon and the X-Wings taking off. It is the largest of 6 pyramids in the area, but in some shots, the smaller temples, 1, 2, and 3, can be seen above the treetops. When the Millennium Falcon arrives at the Rebel base following its escape from the Death Star, the landing is tracked by a Rebel scout who follows the ship in with its scanner. The Rebel scout was played by Industrial Light and Magic's model maker Lauren Peterson, and the perch he standing in is erected on site with Richard Edlund, Dick Alexander, also from ILM, behind the camera. These shots were filmed in March 1977, just 2 months before the film's release. Guatemala was in the middle of a 36-year civil war when filming took place, and the heavy equipment, which included lighting gear and camera, was carried to the top of the temple using a pulley system guarded by a local who protected the equipment with a shotgun for 4 nights in return for beer. They bought his services for beer. That sounds like a pretty good trade, if you ask me. Unfortunately, a year later, the huts that were used by the crew were burned to the ground by real-life rebels. Various scenes of the X-Wings leaving were created by compositing images of the models into live-action footage filmed from top of Temple 4. Some shots required for the Rebel base were filmed at a Royal Air Force base in Bedfordshire, England, with the aid of a matte painting provided by Ralph McQuarrie, whilst the hangar was shot on H-Stage at Stepperton Studios, since the space at Elstree wasn't big enough. Built over a towering scaffold clad with wooden panels, the huge wall facade of the throne room were easy to wheel around the set, although their weight meant that tow trucks were needed. Yeah, I would imagine they'd probably be pretty heavy. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Life support systems. Some of our favorite part, the secrets of spaceflight. So, any ship crewed by sentient beings as opposed to droids is utterly dependent on life support systems to provide a breathable atmosphere or aquatic environment and supply essential fluids as appropriate to the operator's species. This is just kind of generic stuff. Basically saying all of them need it, and the Millennium Falcon was no exception. The YT-1300's equipment, the Corellian Light Freighter main life support system, is Corel Stand. C8 unit is located in number 2 hold after of the starship's right mandible, and is tasked with providing the necessities of life for her crew and passengers. The equipment's oblong housing is somewhat reminiscent of a refrigeration unit, with the addition of a network of specially designed arterial connectors. These protruding life support conduits connect the unit to the starship, whose heartbeat system effectively supplies. A brightly colored indicator panel displays a map of all the habitable parts of the starship and indicates their life support status to the captain and crew. The environmental controls, as they are also known, are controlled by the environmental sub-processor installed in the main computer, which, in the Falcon's case, is a highly modified and triple-joy-brained Honks Wargle Superflow 4, which we went over last time in the bonus stuff. By default, the YT-1300's life support system is set to provide the crew and passengers with breathable oxygen throughout their sublight and hyperspace transits between the ports of different star systems. The basic setting is a Type 1 atmosphere. This is a necessity due to the human physiology of her Carillion builders, but it can quickly be swapped out for other species once a buyer has been found for the ship. C8 adaptability. The Coralstan C8 life support system has earned a reputation for its adaptability. Starship engineers can easily rearrange the system to provide any pressurized gas needed to sustain a wide array of uh, spacefaring races. While aquatic species can be accommodated through retrofitting the ship, it is usually more economical to provide such crew and passengers with pressure suits set for their own environmental conditions. For crew members who tolerate oxygen poorly, the YT-1300's owner manual warns that Arshook ventilation packs should be activated. The life support system can also be shut down as an energy-saving measure for droid-only crews, although the permanent removal of life support systems is not only frowned upon by most sector authorities, but actively outlawed by many of them. So don't remove your life support systems. There's an understanding among space privateers and pirates that the best way to seize the cargo of a starship is to kill her crew and passengers by crippling her life support system. It is then possible to board the ship of the dead in a spacesuit with no resistance and take the cargo, so long as she has no droids aboard. That's pretty important. Drone ships. The only scenario where the YT-1300's C8 life support system can be completely turned off is the starship's owners transform her into a simple drone ship, and there is no life or even droids aboard. However, drone capability is only ever possible for simple hyperspace routes where control can be turned over entirely to the ship's main computer. Water tanks. It does have water. It's very important. Fitted after the port airlock, come as standard on the YT-1300 with the option of adding extra tanks, a factory-produced option for long-distance missions. The tanks can be configured to carry other essential liquids instead of water, but none of the Millennium Falcon's owners found such modifications necessary. The Falcon was also fitted with a premium water recycling unit, just 4 of the port airlock. For most YT-1300 customers, the unit is viewed as a necessity, but CEC offers to remove the recycler for any buyers who do not need water. Other equipment more appropriate for such operators' use can then be installed. So let's have a quick look, see what we're talking about here. Okay, so this is going to break out the life support system. So here is where the life support system is. The auxiliary cooling unit is right there, and the fresh water tank is out here on the outside, and we have the water recycling unit there. So kind of actually spread out quite a bit, but these two are pretty close to each other. I'm sure that they're interlinked in some way. So freshwater tanks water dehydration monoxide, dihydrogen monoxide, a simple way of saying H2O, uh, dihydrogen monoxide. I've never heard it described that way or titled that way. That's hilarious. Consists of hydrogen and oxygen and is found on many planets in the galaxy. The surface of Planets such as Camino, Mon Calamari, and Manan are completely covered in water, and other terrestrial planets commonly have free water in oceans, lakes, rivers, and aquifers. Water is vital for many life forms, although there are some species that find it poisonous. The bodies of many species hold large amounts of water. For example, the human body is about 60% water by weight. So there you go. And this is actually showing, this is the recycler, and this is the the water tank, and it is showing the connections there. So there you go. Behind the scenes, real life, the life support system aboard the International Space Station, ISS, offer a real-world solution to the problem of living in space for a long period. Unlike earlier generations of craft intended for one use, the ISS is designed to operate indefinitely, relying on a combination of expendable and recycling technologies. Its environmental control and life support system has several functions. Via the electrolysis of water, it supplies essential oxygen for the commander and crew to breathe, also monitoring and controlling the levels of nitrogen, carbon dioxide, methane, hydrogen, and water vapor. The system removes carbon dioxide from the station's air and filters out microorganisms and volatile organic trace gases, while it maintains cabin pressure, temperature, and humidity levels. It also provides water for consumption, food preparation, and hydrogen uses, which is done through recycling wastewater. A similar but much simpler life support system on the earlier Russian space station Mir cost considerably less to build, and some observers thought it was even better than the later one developed by NASA in the US. There you go. So it talks about methane. We all know what that is, and filtering out microorganisms. So basically, uh, the filtering system will filter out your bad gas. So if you eat those beans that they put in your food pack, you're good to go. Passage perspective. As the interiors of the Falcon were broken down into separate sets and there were no continuous takes of someone leaving the cockpit, there was no need to connect the cockpit to the hold. The corridors that are visible in the movie were made with removable panels that the crew could take apart to get the lighting in. So it was possible for them to recycle parts of the set to provide backdrop when it was necessary to see behind the open cockpit door. As a result, in shots where the passage tube is visible, its perspective doesn't completely match the exterior of the Falcon. The passage should go straight back almost full length of the cockpit again before turning to the right as at an angle of 120 degrees, but it appears much closer to the door. Yeah, so basically the turn is right behind here, but in reality that wouldn't be the case. So you can see that here the turn is there. You should have basically that much space of straight, but you don't see that. Basically, they've got the turn right up there. But, hey, it fooled the naked eye, right? All right, so that is the end of issue 23. On to issue 24. I'm fairly confident that we're going to be doing a lot of the framework, and I'm contemplating maybe mounting some of the plating and then actually painting the whole thing together. So I'm going to maybe look into that and see what that would result in. But we'll see what happens in issue 24 and see how much of the framework we get done. So thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. And may the force be with you always.